Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We've watched a sci-fi movie and we talk about it. It's really quite that simple. And, it's a little, we try and be in depth and work through a lot of the movie and talk about theories and ideas and maybe a bit of analysis, possibly some shenanigans from time to time. But that's the idea, give or take. So today's episode, we are looking at Blade Runner 2049. And why are we looking at this movie in particular this week? It's because, well, we've already done the original won a vote to be done like a year and a half ago. So we did the original quite a while ago. Neither one of us are huge fans, I think it's fair to say. Maybe that's even putting it lightly, but just to be diplomatic about it, that's the general sentiment. And we have Dune coming out, the new version of Dune, and we thought that it'd make a lot of sense to do the Denis Villeneuve films that were science fiction before Dune comes out, as well as, of course, the original Dune by David Lynch, who is phenomenal and doesn't do a lot of sci-fi, so it's a special treat to get to talk about a David Lynch movie, even though it's the least David Lynch movie, except maybe Elephant Man, which is also very not super David Lynch in terms of style. Very good. Elephant Man's a great film, but it's not like a super David Lynchy movie. But anyway, that's the reason. We're doing Blade Runner 2049. We will be doing Arrival in the near future. Not next week, but in the near future. And we will be doing those films before we get to the release of Dune in October, which is only a few months away now. So, after many delays, because that movie was meant to come out last Christmas. So, yeah. So that's kind of cool, and we'll see how that pans out. And maybe Denis will finally have a hit in his hands financially, because thus far it's not really worked out for him in a box office way. So we shall see. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Tara. Would you like to have a bit of an intro yourself?
No, that was good.
But you're the one who loved this movie when it came out, so you must be enthusiastic. You must be hyped.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to talk about it.
Because I was a bit more mixed on this film. There's things when it came out I liked about it, but there was also some things that I didn't like about it, and some things that didn't quite click for me at the time. So I was very fascinated coming into this watch. This is the first time I've watched it since I saw it in theaters, to see if I'd feel differently, to see if things that I didn't like as much the first time were going to feel less so or outright different this time, or if it was just going to be the same again. And maybe we'll get into why we feel differently on it, but I'll tell you in a second. But I'm going to make Tara answer the question first. Tara, how did you feel upon rewatching Blade Runner 2049?
Well, I was very enthusiastic after I left the theater, seeing it for the first time. I definitely thought it was just the best the best sci-fi movie I had seen that year, at least. And what a beautiful film to look at too. Roger Deakins did the cinematography, for that, and you can always tell when it's him because the man has got an extraordinary eye. Yeah, I still love it. I haven't watched the movie very much. I think I saw it twice when it came out in theaters, and this is the first time I've viewed it since then. And it is still really very good. I still really love it. I do have a problem with it also, and I'll just get it out of the way. My problem with it is that if there's even a little bit of daylight in your room, you're not going to be able to see anything going on in the film. It is dark sometimes. A lot of the film is very dark.
Yeah, I think that's fair. TV screen, if you got a fancy OLED, which I don't, for the record, this is not me rubbing it in because I don't have this, but I'm sure people who have fancy OLEDs don't have that problem because they've got the fancy tech. But I guess I'll just to jump on something you said there. The reason why I suspect you haven't seen it a bunch of times since it came out is probably because it's almost 3 hours long. So therefore, it's not quite a watch on a whim kind of movie. It's more of a make time for it because it's going to take you almost 3 hours to sit through it. So
yeah.
For better or worse, and we'll get into that. yeah. Sadly, I have to say I feel pretty much the exact same as I did when I saw it the first time. There was one big element of the movie's plot that really was like a... It was like I was on one of those like medieval death traps, right? You think Pit and the Pendulum, right? And the axe is like swinging from my neck. There's a plot thread in the movie on the first time where I kind of had the feeling that I was just waiting for that axe to sort of eventually hit me, because I really dreaded something the movie was sort of teasing. And, you know, we're not in spoilers yet, you know, we're starting this off spoiler free, but I will say that what I was worried about ended up not being the case, and I was very relieved by that. But I did spend a lot of the movie being concerned about it, though. And I was wondering if that difference, like going in knowing where it was going to make a significant difference for me. And I don't think it really did, bizarrely. All the things I liked the first time I still like, and all of the, it's particularly the cinematography and the visuals and the music and all of, much like the original Blade Runner, all the technical stuff. I do think there's some storytelling in this that is just better than the original film, so I do think this is a better movie. But just about any time it leans on the characters or the story that was apparently told in the first one, particularly in regards to the romance, I find myself just kind of feeling disconnected from the film because I don't really buy it or believe it or feel any of the weight of that or feel any of the emotion of that. I do think some of the ways it connects to the original film are actually quite good, and I think early on especially there's kind of a mystery element, you know, that something's found that sort of starts off the investigation. I think that starting point is actually quite good. Once we actually delve into kind of where it goes, though, I kind of just lose more and more interest a little bit, and some of the concepts they introduce, I don't dislike any of the ideas. And the sad part is that much like the original Blade Runner, there's a moment right at the very end, because in the original Blade Runner, I always talk about how that speech, that monologue from Rutger Hauer is so good, and I wish that the rest of the movie lived up to that moment. It's not quite as extreme in this, but there is a moment right at the very end that I really like, and I'm like, oh, I wish I was feeling like I was building to this. I wish I felt like I was building to this the last hour, because again, it's like 2 hours 40 minutes.
There is a much better love story in this one, though.
I will I still have issues with it, but it is better. It is much better. I will say that. And then the thing I can say outright before we talk about anything else is that Jared Leto was garbage in this. His character is garbage. His character is not needed. And if you cut out just his 2 scenes, you would be saving like a good 15 minutes to 20 minutes of the runtime.
I don't hate the Jared Leto stuff. I think it poses some interesting questions, and plus, he's just the new Tyrell from the first one.
This is actually something I'm going to give the first one points for. I thought Tyrell was a more interesting character, because Tyrell had this thing where he kind of felt like he was a bit of a father figure in a sense, where you kind of got the impression that he did actually kind of care about them a little bit. Jared Leto just comes off as a goddamn psychopath. Like, he's just a psycho, and I don't.
Yeah.
You know, I don't enjoy his performance. He's basically still playing the Joker, just in a slightly different, you know, setting.
I guess I don't really see it that way, but there are elements of his like character that I do like.
Okay. Well, we'll get to it.
I think just Jared Leto, because he's got this, you know, stank around him, the actor, that it's he pops up on screen and you're like, I just don't like him. But
it feels like
I definitely don't think he's a bad actor. He was a horrible Joker, but I don't know how much of that was his fault.
He comes
the
off
movie was terrible.
He comes off as someone who takes his acting so seriously that he just he becomes this unlikable douchebag about it, even on screen as you're watching the performance play out. Because there's a lot of actors who take their role seriously. They're thespians. They really, you know, want to give a good performance, and they treat the roles with that kind of level. But I really get like try hard vibes from Jared Leto a lot of the time, and I do include that very much in this film. There's moments in this where he's sort of monologuing, and he's monologuing in a way where I don't even hear half the shit he says because I just zone out, because he's just saying nonsense at a certain point, and it's just kind of like I can't pay attention to you because you're just annoying to listen to. You're saying big words and you're trying to sound philosophical and
Okay, but again, that's like the script, though. That's not Jared Leto as a person coming through there.
There's a little. I mean, someone else might have been delivered the lines better. Someone else might have delivered them in a way where the points got across better. Like, I think there's a bit of tit for tat there. So, but yeah, okay. So that's
I really enjoy the like the post-apocalypse of global warming or I guess also nuclear war, since there's so much radiation. That I like how they took the design of the first film and made entirely new places that we hadn't seen before in this world. I think they're all really strong. All of those set pieces.
Yeah. We find out San Diego is basically just a big waste dump for all the trash and waste that comes out of LA, which is now huge and has like there's like the regular size buildings which are probably similar to what we have now, and then the absolutely huge ones that are towering over those, and there's a big huge wall that's keeping the ocean out because presumably sea levels have
risen,
skyrocketed in the last 30 years. I mean, maybe not even 30, maybe they were already that bad in Blade Runner, they just never showed it. But because obviously we're in this fictional world where we have to accept that 2019 in Blade Runner was they're 2019, right. And this is now, right. Yeah. So this is not 30 years in our future. This is 30 years in the Blade Runner future. So yeah. I think that's an important distinction to make. I think, even though they have some fun with that. The Atari logo is in one of the billboard light things, and it's like, okay, that's just kind of cute because that was one of the big ones at the first movie. Even though Atari's, it's not, it doesn't not exist anymore, but it's obviously very different and doesn't,
They're not the big success. They're not the next. I mean, if it was Sony, they would have nailed it,
Oh, sure. For sure. I think there was a Sony one in this, though, as well. I feel like I saw a Sony. I feel like I saw a Sony. Not a PlayStation specifically, just a general Sony one. But, yeah. So, yeah, obviously they had fun with that and the big holograms and lights. And I do like that there's some actual miniatures used for some of the buildings because there's some good behind-the-scenes footage of them doing that because they wanted to give it like a sort of tactile feel. And so, some of the shots of the flying cars just flying through the city early on are really beautiful, and I get so frustrated that I'm not just in love with it. Like, like when I see like certain moments or shots in this movie, like I feel like I should love this. I feel like I should be giving this a 10, like just based on those ball moments. And then there's just stuff in the story and the characters that just does not click, and I'm just frustrated at various points. Obviously, a lot of that we're getting spoilers, but
yeah, I definitely don't share that sentiment. Like when I saw the film, I was just totally blown away, and I still continue to be impressed by it. I think the themes, especially that are presented in the films, are in this film is really like enough. Enough to like keep me interested and keep me thinking about the characters even after I've watched it.
I mean, no, there's great ideas in there. I don't deny that. This is the frustrating thing about talking about this movie, is that fundamentally I don't have a problem with any of the concepts that are played. I actually even quite like most of them. I think there's some characters that feel weak to me. I think Robin Wright's character kind of sucks. She's not like terrible when she's on screen or anything, but she comes off as kind of a caricature of this type of character in a movie like this. She's like the police chief kind of like stern character. I think the sort of the main villain that actually like fights and stuff, the replicant lady, I think she's kind of dull. I don't really get a whole lot from her.
Really?
Yeah, I don't feel much from her.
I thought she was like kind of a standout the first time I watched it.
She comes off as like, I don't know, just generic hench person to me in a lot of ways. Like, and
I don't know. There's a lot of layers because she's a replicant and like she's, what she's designed to do.
And that's not a spoiler. Like that's made very clear. Yeah. As soon as you meet her.
So her motivations and stuff I think are pretty fascinating to look at.
So there's a lot of elements that I don't think the other thing I want to mention is super spoilery, so I can't say it, but there's another thing that I think is really underbaked. I wish I just like I almost wish that they didn't bring any characters back. I almost, and it's not that Harrison Ford's bad in this or that he doesn't have some good moments, but I almost wish that they just left it behind and
they just made a new story.
Just made a new story about this because Ryan Gosling's story, like his character Kay, is the most interesting character. Like his journey, his like, in the way it mirrors a certain character in the original film. I won't say who. Again, just in case anyone's watching this with all seen the movie and they don't want it spoiled.
Mm-hmm.
I think is the most interesting thing about the whole movie. It's the part that I think is truly inspired. But there's definitely, because I think the movie's pretty strong for the first 30 to 40 minutes. I think once we first meet Jared Leto is where I start to like feel like going downhill a little bit, and that's also when it starts to hint at something that I really didn't like them hinting at. Oh, like, I don't know about this. Turns out it actually adds to a really cool thing to Kay's character, which I kind of dug, but it just
yeah. I mean, I know what you're saying because when I watched the film, I had the same thought. It's like, oh, okay, so this seems too easy. Like we figured it out too fast.
And there is some contrivance, that there is such a convenient thing in this movie that especially this time annoyed me. Like I got really annoyed because I think the first time I watched it, like I was obviously unpacking all the stuff we learned, that when I watched it this time I was like, oh wait, we introduced that in one random scene and it's just very convenient that this thing connects to that thing. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. Again, spoilers, so I'll get into that in a minute when we dive in, which I feel like we're going to do soon because we're dancing around too much.
Yeah, okay. We can do spoilers.
Is there anything else you'd want to add though? Spoiler free.
I guess the score is just a lot of sound effects, which is, I mean, it's good. It's very atmospheric. It's not something I think I'd want to listen to outside of the film.
There's fun moments. If I remember correctly, I think the composer who was going to do the film passed away.
Wow.
Before they did, and so Hans Zimmer was brought in, and it's it's a very Hans Zimmer take on the Blade Runner, thing. There's some motifs and like sounds that come back, and there's a theme towards the end that comes back. There's definitely Blade Runner elements sprinkled into it, and that's kind of neat. I mean, the visuals and the sound and the music and all that stuff is still my favorite things about this world, and it's still it's the thing that's consistent between the two. The only critique being maybe is I thought some of Jared Leto's lair was a little maybe just overly designed, just a little overly clean.
It looks like the Tyrell one.
Yeah, but I think because now they have the extra like tech to like make it completely clean, and like it just felt a little too fake to me, just how smooth everything was and how there was nothing. Because in the original, yeah, you've got this sort of similar lighting and you've got the kind of this like sort of rich like element to it. Yeah,
because whenever we're following like the people who like, it's a class thing, so the people who are in the lower class, where it's always raining and like foggy and ugly and dirty, and then you got the Tyrell and Leto's character in this one, who lives so high up that they're actually above all the rain and they always have sunshine coming through.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the room he has, which is like a platform in the middle of a pool, and there's just all the reflections of the water on the walls, and it's so perfect and like designed with like nothing, like there's like
his character is also blind, so like why would he need to have anything other than just blank walls?
Well, I'm not saying put things on the wall. I'm saying like, I don't know, like have some buttons on the wall next to the door, or like a trash can or something. It feels so fake because it's just so empty. It feels like a fake movie set. It's too clean.
I think his character being blind and like designing the world essentially that they're living in, he could only see it through technology. So everything becomes more and more technology based instead of being natural based, is like part of the themes of the film. And his layer, if you want to call it that, being just so stark and straight line and sleek and boxy looking, it's just, again, it's like reiterating that theme of being so removed from nature.
I hear what you're saying. I still don't like it.
Okay. Is that going to be this review in a nutshell?
Well, I mean, but I'm not arguing the because I mean that was a fine bit of analysis to try and justify it, and maybe that's what they're going for, and that's cool, but it doesn't change the fact that every time we cut to it, I go, oh, it's the villain lair. It's the evil villain lair. Whereas, yeah, sure, Tyrell in the first film had his ivory tower, and it was very kind of, the mood, like orange lighting with the water effects and stuff. But it still felt like a room that someone built. It still felt like something that someone lived in. It still had tables and chairs, and like it still felt like a place. And this just felt like, movie villain lair to me. It felt a little bit too stylized to my taste. That's all.
Okay.
Okay. And then I'm just trying to think if that's what I mentioned, spoiler free. Yeah, cast is otherwise, Gosling's good. I do like Harrison Ford in it.
Yeah. If you need someone to sit still for a long time and look concerned, you get Ryan Gosling.
Ana de Armas is good in it. And
yeah, she's also definitely a standout. People knew her name after this movie.
Yeah, this is the first thing I saw her into. I mean, I think we're probably going to disagree a little bit about how good her plot line is, but that's okay.
Okay.
Like, I think great ideas. I think the execution's a little lacking. That's all I'm going to say.
Really? I think it's really hard to not fall in love with her in the movie. But that's okay.
Is the lonely man of the two of us? I don't know if I feel that. But okay. But okay, we'll get spoilers. So full spoilers for Blade Runner 2049. We can break this into sections, I think, quite neatly. Your opening section. Well, actually, I mean, you've got a lot of text before you get to the opening. There's a big explanation of not only what replicants are, but the fact that they were outlawed, and then this guy, Jared Leto, who's Wallace, I think his name was. He, because he saved the planet from famine with his tech, he bought the remnants of Tyrell's corporation that brought replicants back, and now everyone's okay with it. What I thought was interesting to point out here, which I think is super important for the story, and particularly if talking about, if Deckard's a replicant or not, which he definitely is, by the way, is that it does say in this text that only select Nexus 8 replicants had the lifespan limiter. Not all of them did. Some of them, it specifically says that the ones who didn't have that are still being hunted down, and that's why Blade Runner still exists, because the modern replicants, which is one of the ones that our main character Kay is, which is not a spoiler, it's the very first conversation he has in the movie, reveals this. They thought, we're not doing the mystery again.
I did love that one, because of the trailers they didn't tell you, but the opening scene in the film, they're like, okay, that thing you were wondering here is it clears it up right away.
Yeah, and obviously the movie plays with that. It's a big part of his character, but it makes it clear that replicants from back, not all of them had this time limit on their lifespan. So that explains if Deckard's a replicant, that part's not like a plot hole or something. And he definitely is. I think this movie basically, I think it's written as if Deckard's a replicant. They just left enough wiggle room so that it was still technically ambiguous.
I really like that. I thought it was really cool that they didn't feel the need to have to answer that question just because they were a follow-up sequel.
Yeah, well, this is the funny thing, is that Ridley Scott and various other prominent people from Blade Runner were all just adamant, no, the ending said he was a replicant, that's what the ending was.
Well, Harrison Ford doesn't think so.
Which is probably why they didn't specifically say it. They probably were doing it to appease Harrison Ford. They probably didn't want to piss him off, so you know what, we'll leave it.
Maybe. I think it's cool that they don't address it at all. I think that's a bolder choice. And they don't need to give, they don't feel they need to answer that, because then it changes your viewpoint of the first film.
Well, I disagree with that last point, just because I think my viewpoint of the first film is he is a replicant. I don't think it...
Well, I guess it depends on which cut you watch.
If you watch any cut that's not the theatrical cut, or I suppose the international cut, because that's just the theatrical one with some tweaks. But if you watch the director's cut or the final cut, the ending scene is a replicant. It's just very... I
like to leave it open. I like that it's not clear
Okay.
in both films.
I think it's pretty clear in both films, but it's just there's just enough. If you really want to believe he's not, you've got enough of a little bit of wiggle room. And I also, for the purpose of this movie, which is like replicants can have kids, right? That's what the whole plot revolves around. That is way more effective thematically to me if both parents are replicants, rather than one is a human and one's a replicant. No? Maybe.
I mean, it came from a mother. That's the only thing that matters for Kay. Because he thinks if it came from a mother, then it had to be a natural birth, which would mean you would have a soul.
Which is a debate to get into, but but I'm talking more about the group of replicants who want to like take their race forward and have a revolution. Like I feel like thematically it's more powerful if it came from two if the baby was sired, conceived by two replicants rather than one human and one relative. Because it's the do you still need human sperm? Like, is that still an integral part of the process to get it going, or? I
mean, maybe the only real difference is that replicants are, they are biology. They are the same. It's just that they are created by humans the non-natural way.
Yes, and big sacks, which they came out and they're covered in jelly, and Jared Leto gets all creepy and maybe stabs you. So the opening, right? So it's Kay flying out to this sort of on the outskirts, a sort of protein farming land, and he visits Batista. All the tension here I think is great. The way Batista comes into the house and like Kay's sitting there over by the window, and he doesn't really notice him, and then he says something, and then it's and it's kind of a play on what that opening was in the first movie, which is the tension of like, okay. Because obviously we don't know right away if he's a replicant or not, right? We assume Batista is because he's here to find him, but then immediately he refers to we, like you hunt our kind down, and he's like, no, it's not. You're not my kind because you run, and it's like, okay, all right, immediately replicant, fine, let's get that out in the open. We're not, dealing with that. And he sets up some of the themes of the movie. He talks about like, the only reason why you're still a slave to them is because you've never seen a miracle, because you don't believe in anything. And they have a fight. Eventually Gosling, has to put him down. And it's when he scans the area, there's a box under the tree, which eventually turns out to have bones in it, which turns out to be Rachel from the first movie. But before we even get to that, because they have to send out a dig team, so there's like a bunch of stuff of, like, we see him going back to the precinct, we get to see the city, it's all very pretty. We get to meet Robin Wright. We get to see that he takes this test to make sure that he's not, off personality-wise. He gets tested every time he comes in.
Don't want to get decommissioned.
Yeah, I mean, we see that he's basically a victim of racism. Like, people constantly call him a skin job. He gets graffiti on his door.
Yeah, even other replicants don't like him, obviously, because of what he does for a living.
Yeah.
And, it's... But he comes home and he lives like a normal life. He's got a wife who cooks for him.
Whoa. He doesn't have a wife. He has a hologram that he pretends is a wife.
He's got a companion, yes.
Which, this is my question. So when we see this advertised later, this like AI like girlfriend thing, it's still Ana de Armas the whole time, right? That's playing the role. And all I could think was, wait, they only have one like model. Like, there's no like like you buy this tech and you don't get to choose like your perfect woman. No, but don't get me wrong, she's a pretty strong contender to have that'll please most of the audience. I'm not saying she isn't, but it's just,
she's just kind of like the perfect blend of like everybody's like pretty girl.
Or is it just lazy? Is this like when you're creating a character in an RPG and you're too lazy to change out of the options, so you just went default?
I'm sure you can like change like hair and preferences like that and stuff, but maybe the default is Ana de Armas.
But she was cycling through different hairstyles anyway, because she was like doing different outfits and all sorts of things. Right. I did like kind of the clunkiness to it though. There's like a sort of like rail on his like ceiling with the little projector thing that moves around, so that it has to be wherever she is. And one of the plot points here is that he pulls out. He's bought like a portable unit so she can just go around wherever she wants with him.
And it can project her.
So they have this emotional moment up in the roof, which honestly is maybe the first thing in the movie I don't think is quite right. And it's not that it's bad. I just felt this went a bit too like emotional for something like for this hologram girl that you've just introduced, and for Ryan Gosling, who I'm starting to get into, and I'm appreciating like the world building of like how he's treated and how he functions in this society and all that. But they have this really quiet moment where like the music swells up and like they're pretending to touch in the rain, and I'm like, okay. And I think it's interesting that we start this movie more or less in the rain. It's not the very first scene, but I think it's interesting that we have a scene on a rooftop in the rain, but we don't end that way. We actually end with snow, which I think is kind of a intentional kind of swerve on like because the ending of the first movie is very famous. It's the classic tears in the rain, right? And insert joke about something in the snow, but just Tara's gears try to figure out what I was implying.
Frozen tears?
I'm not going to explain it. The people with the bad senses of humor will get it. It's fine. So I thought I was going a bit too far. No, admittedly, it does kind of pay off because it has this moment that kind of emphasizes how not real she is. Because she pauses, like, he gets a phone call and she just freezes. It's like, ding, 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 ding. You got a call coming.
Yeah.
Just to emphasize
right. Well,
it.
It sets up that theme also, is that she is very much like the love that she is giving, even though she's a program, she's an AI. And her program is to be exactly what Ryan Gosling needs, which is a companion that loves him. So it is very much like this emotional scene, like when he gives her the present, even her reaction is just like disbelief. Like, I can't believe I'm going to be able to be out of here and not be restricted to one room anymore. Like, she seems to want that. And then when she gets that, the moment of being in the rain, and then she simulates being wet, like her hair gets wet and stuff in the rain, and she goes in to give them like this most romantic kiss for this romantic scene, and then cut, because there's a phone call coming in and she freezes and she's in this ridiculous pose when he pulls away of her doing a half kiss. And it is a stark reminder of, okay, well, was all that real? So like,
no, it's not at all.
Yeah, it was all programmed and stuff. Like, okay, but that's the point of it, because that's very much like one of the big things of the movie, is that if her feelings aren't real, then maybe Kay's feelings aren't real. So
yeah, that's obviously what I think my problems with like because her name is Joy, right? Because that's what they call the program, is GOI, which actually is an acronym that's used online for something else, which was a little distracting, to be honest.
It is.
Seeing the movie, just don't Google it.
Oh, it's a sex thing, huh?
It is a sex thing, yes.
Boys.
So, but it kind of links up with what she is, though, in a way. So I think I think it may actually be intentional. I don't think it's an accident that it matches up with what it is. So what's I think part of my frustration with this character the first time, and I don't know if this was better or worse the second time, but even in the first viewing, I kind of like, as soon as they introduced this portable thing, and especially later on when we get a scene where he's like, I'm going to have to like delete you off the home computer system because we can't have them tracking your memories or anything like that. And they make it very clear that she's in this portable device, and if that gets destroyed, then she's going to die. Effectively. Is that I was like, I kind of feel that this is all just a little bit choreographed and designed to make me care about her, or at least care about how he feels about her, so we can have the sad scene later where she's destroyed and that's taken away from him. And of course, like, I understand what we're doing here is like the idea of feelings, like how real is real, at what point does it matter how synthetic something is, but if you feel the feelings, and so on and so on. And obviously there's the idea as well that Kay as a character needs something real to believe in and fight for, which he doesn't really get until late in the film, and that's kind of this big ending sort of arc, as he finally gets to die for something that he believes in, right, for a good cause, which is actually my favorite thing about the whole movie, is how it plays off of Rutger Hauer's character in the first film is that we're not following. I mean, we're kind of following both this. We're following both the Blade Runner and the Rutger Hauer, but I feel like more so as the movie goes on, it becomes a Rutger Hauer in the sense that it's not about, because Rutger Hauer in the first film, it's really sad his death. His death is really sad because he has no choice in how he's dying. He's just on a timer and he's going to die, and he gives his famous Tears in the Rain speech. And it's not a coincidence that the same little melody plays as Ryan Gosling, like, you know, sits down on the steps and sort of like peacefully dies, but he dies having done something. Like, he put himself in a position to die. I mean, he might have survived, but he knew what the risks were, and he made a choice saying that, you know, this is, I'm willing to do this because I believe this is something that I care about. I'm willing to die for. So he dies with choice and believing in something, and that I think is one of the most interesting things that this movie does. And obviously, everything with Joy as a character is about him having something that's not very real. And when he meets Harrison Ford's character, he meets Deckard, it's like, oh, there's actually something very real that you should have and you don't appreciate it. And it's something that I'm longing for. It's almost a Data thing in a weird way. It's like Data longing for those human emotions.
Yeah, it's actually more like another character that you haven't seen yet because he's in Star Trek Voyager, which is the Doctor who is a hologram.
Oh, sure, okay, yeah.
And that often comes up. Like, if he gets deleted, he can come back, but he won't have all the same memories. It won't really be him anymore. Like, that kind of thing. That danger is always present.
Yeah, no, I think it's totally there, and the idea that he wants someone who gave up his relationship with his child to such an extent that he was willing to, like, give them this reunion by, dying for it because he believed in it that much. I think that is a fascinating character arc. My problem with the Joy part specifically is that she feels like such a plot device to me that I never really connect with that his relationship with her never connects with me, because I just kind of see her as a tool to get to that point, to make a point in the story. And it's a really hard thing to critique, and I don't really have an answer for this, because ultimately, if something's not clicking for you and you're just seeing the plot serving, like, device that it is, as opposed to, like, getting lost in the story, because I'm sure there's other things that I like that you could sit and, like, nitpick and say, well, technically this relationship only exists to serve this purpose later in the movie, and you'd absolutely be right to say it. But when I watched this, and this is now the second time I've seen it, I never really felt much for them as a pair. And because it leans so heavily on it in the middle of the film, once he's, like, especially going on the run, and once we get to all that stuff where she's in danger because she's on this separate little device and all that, I thought it falls a bit flat for me. It's funny, it's definitely better than the romance in the first movie, but I have to say that for the second movie in a row, the romance at the center of the film kind of hurts the film for me a little bit, because it just doesn't land.
I don't share that. I definitely buy the relationship that he's having with her, because he'll take her with him to just do work and stuff, and, like, looking through a microscope at objects, and just clicks her on, so he has some company with him. And I think she's obviously very cute around him, and she like kind of lightens up the scene a bit when she's there, and we get to see him a bit more vulnerable and open up to somebody, because whenever he talks to anybody else, he's always super cold and doing his job. But with her, he's a bit more loose. I think she's basically like Wilson in Castaway when you think about it, but she looks like Ana de Armas, and she has this personality that is perfect for him, because that's what she's designed to be.
Yeah, I think I want to make it clear, though, that it's not that I don't buy it. I understand it. I understand what she is to him. I understand why he feels the way he does about her. I just never feel it. Does that? I mean, I don't know if that makes sense. But I never feel it. I never feel a connection to it as a relationship.
Well, when she does actually die, if you want to call it that, then I definitely feel it. Like, I felt the her like last words to him are just "I love you." Like she knew she was going to die, but she still made the effort to do that anyway. And sure, yeah, it's a program. She's programmed to love him, but there's still like a sadness there when she's gone. Like, and that's, you know, amplified even more when he sees her again in the advertisement later on. And he has that moment of like, well, it, you know, it even says in the advertisement, like joy is everything that you need her to be or whatever. And he has that moment of that what I had with joy wasn't really real, even though it felt that way. I don't know. I guess I'm just really into the film and into all of that, but it all worked for me.
It feels like, I guess the best way I could describe it in a simple phrase is that it feels like a swing and a miss. Like that, the death itself, where evil lady stomps on the thing, like, I didn't feel anything from it. I just kind of, and maybe it's just because Her's so good at this. Maybe it's just because Her was such a good movie that explored this idea, and I got so much more out of that. But in Her, the operating system,
that is the whole film in Her.
No, that's true. But in Her, like, the operating system at a certain point did feel like she had feelings and she was sentient and there was something.
And she was also talking to like a regular human.
That's true. That's
not
also
a replicant who's like a cop or a detective who's super cold all the time.
But I got it in that movie. I felt it. I understood it. I related to so much of the loneliness and so much of the emotions that movie was playing with. This, on the other hand, like I say, it starts off just fine, but the more it goes into it, the less I kind of like felt it. And I think part of it is that, like I wish, I don't even know what I want from it. Part of me thinks that I need to spend more time like comparing him to Deckard, so that the idea of like him making his sacrifice so that Deckard can have the real thing that he would want for himself. And he sees that as being super important, and he sees that as a valuable thing to chase after. That'd be, I think that might help. Part of me thinks that maybe Ryan Gosling just like needed to emote with her a little bit more to make me really like care. Because I know you're saying that he does say like more like some more personality in his like lines in those scenes, but I don't know if I would say that he feels like more comfortable with her, or like he's still very stoic. He's still Ryan Gosling playing a robot, effectively.
I suppose so.
He's not Wall-E, okay? This is not Wall-E and Evie.
No. I just like the fact that he's like, I'm just in a room by myself. I'm gonna have my girlfriend with me. I wonder, like that character decision, I think, is still even enough to be like, I just like having her around.
I wonder if it would have worked better if we'd like started at the start of the relationship, like maybe like when he first bought her, like maybe like have that scene and have that kind of like play out, like, you know, what drove him, what sort of like beat in his life made him go, I want to, you know, buy this, you know, program.
I think it's just letting us know that, you know, replicants get lonely also. They just want companionship. They want to feel something.
I know, I buy that, but I think there could be some art in like him almost in like a Heart, or even like Rent a Pal, which is a movie I watched last year. Like, yeah,
I watched it too.
Like give us that moment where he like sort of lets himself be convinced by it, right? You know, where not that he's scared. I'm not saying, I mean, he's still a replicant. I'm sure he's still very stoic when he first turns it on. But what's the moment where he kind of starts to rely on it, or he starts to, I don't know, like I feel like there's just like more meat there to like really give it to make it all click for me. I don't know. I don't feel it. It's a shame because I want to. But it's frustrating because I want to love this movie, and there's just certain things about it that just don't click for me. And I'm trying to like find the reasons why, and I don't want to be too like I know this is, you know, reasons A, B, and C why this movie does not work, because I don't necessarily feel quite that strongly about why it doesn't work. I just know it doesn't for me.
I did click on the IMDb review section. I was just curious what people thought of the film.
People seem to love it generally.
Yeah, it's rated like, I think it's rated 8.0 on the, and most people I talked to who saw the film like really loved it. And
8.0 for the IMDb 8.0 is really high. Like that is a high score in IMDb.
But if you go to like the first page of the review, it's mostly like 3-star and under.
Oh,
And
really?
it's all just people who are fans of the first one that are just like, how dare Hollywood do this and turn it into a joke, miss the entire point of the first film. I was just really surprised. Like, I guess those are the most upvoted ones, so that's why they're on the first page. But it's but it was very surprising. I don't know. The criticism is not unique to you, is what I'm saying, but the type of criticism is a new one for me to hear.
Oh, trust me, I am like. Wait until we talk about The Last Jedi. Like, I am different from everyone else who doesn't like that movie.
Yeah, because you're not like a sexist asshole.
My criticisms are
How
all my
dare
own.
they put women in my films?
Did Laura Dern just speak badly to my male character that I am rooting for? How dare she? It's a frustrating one because like I want a cyberpunk movie to love so much, and there is technically cyberpunk movies I love. Terminator is technically a cyberpunk movie, but it's obviously not like a futuristic like sci-fi city like noir kind of thing. I want to love a movie with this aesthetic so much, and just I've never seen one that I actually like that much. At least not that I can think of.
Matrix is kind of cyberpunky.
Yeah, but even that's different, no, because it's cyberpunk. I'm not arguing that, but it's not this type of cyberpunk where it's in the futuristic city with all the neon and flying cars and shit. Like,
yeah,
that's what I want. I want a movie that I really connect with that aesthetic. Damn it! Actually, speaking of
I have one.
Yeah, well, you have one now. So good for you. Speaking of connections to the first film, one of the first things that he does, so they find the bones, and they're like, "Oh wait, this woman, whoever she was pregnant." And then Ryan Gosling like sort of continues looking at the bones and finds a serial number, and is like, "Hey, this is a
Did you think it
reppy."
was funny? Did you think it was funny that he didn't say the word enhance? It seemed almost intentional. Like, don't say enhance.
It wasn't even this scene. It was later on when he's at like the records and he's looking through all the DNA sequences of all the people in the records. That to me was this movie's version of the enhance scene. But yeah, so they find out this was a replicant, and obviously I think most of us go, well, it's probably Rachel. This is probably her. And one of the things is that when he goes to like the Wallace building, and he meets what's her face, the villain lady, they go to the records. Love, that's her name. Okay, and they basically they hear what the only thing that's remaining about her is the test that she took in the first film. So we hear like a sort of dodgy recording of Deckard asking the questions, and I thought all this was good stuff. I thought this was all like, oh, this is interesting. I love that the elements of the first film are playing into kind of this mystery of what's going on. Which is kind of why I'm so disappointed that some of the mystery elements feel so like just contrived and easy later on. But what I was getting to though is that after this he goes, but now that he's like got Deckard, like he knows like this Deckard Blade Runner was like involved in all this, he goes to see Edward James Olmos, and I love Edward James Olmos because I love Battlestar Galactica, and it was nice to see him. But this is just kind of a worthless fan service scene. This adds almost nothing to it.
It was very much a let's just bring back a character from the first film that fans will like to see.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think there's anything in this scene that you need to have from a plot level or anything.
The fans are going to want to see him. He's still alive, so we should put him in the film somewhere.
He's still alive. Oh, everyone else died. Rule him out. Yeah, I mean, I love the guy. Like, I was happy to see him, but
I've never watched Battlestar Galactica, so I only really know him from the first Blade Runner. I'm sure he's been in other stuff I've seen, but I don't really know him from anything in particular.
What's funny is that because obviously Battlestar Galactica was in the 2000s, so he looks more like he does in Battlestar Galactica in this movie than he does the first Blade Runner.
Yeah, he's almost like unrecognizable as the same person. So
to me, like, he sits down at this table in this old folks home or wherever it is, and I'm like, it's Adama, it's Admiral Adama. Bill Adama, he'll solve all the problems. So
just wait till you watch Tron and you'll get to watch Sheridan.
Oh yeah,
Young Sheridan in a film.
Yeah, it's sci-fi. So We'll do it at some point.
Yeah, of course we're gonna watch it.
I'm not looking forward. I didn't like Tron when I saw it the first time. So
I think Tron is fine, but I really like the sequel.
I've never seen
Even
the
though
sequel.
there's some tropes in it that I don't love, but like I thought the sequel was a lot of fun.
I've never seen the sequel, so I can't comment on that. But I the concept sounded so cool, and then the movie just bored the absolute tears off me. So anyway, where are we? So he's investigating, and he tries to track down the orphanage, and his car gets attacked by rebels or raiders that are in San Diego. He goes into like a sort of labor camp where this awful guy is like making all these kids work, and wants the records of the kids that came through, because there's a date on the horsey.
Yeah, it's like, isn't that the orphanage? Is the labor camp?
Yeah, but I don't know if I got the impression that this was always what it was. Like, it maybe sounded like this used to be an actual orphanage, in the way that we would think an orphanage would work, and it sort of turned into this over time as San Diego became this.
Yeah, it is a pretty gross place. The guy who's running the place is like actually assumes that Ryan Gosling is there to buy a child to like do things to.
Yeah, he starts talking to him like a car salesman. He's like, "Oh, we got all kinds. There's strong, big, small, all shapes and sizes and races. What are you in the mood for? What's your pleasure today, sir?" It's like, well, you're a creepy shit. Yeah.
Here's my officer badge.
I demand some records, and of course, this is where it ties into a previous scene where Robin Wright came over to him and asked him about if he had any memories. And he knows they're fake. He knows his memories are fake.
Yeah, I like that scene actually, where she's like, "I just want to know something about your history." Like she's talking to him like a person. Like, tell me about yourself. Like, obviously she's worked with him for a while, but they just have some sort of friendship blooming, and I think it does turn a little bit like awkward, even like.
Yeah, did she?
Maybe she was going to put some moves on him.
I actually thought she kind of, like, even not overtly, but it kind of, because she said has a line like, what happens if I have another one of these drinks or finish the bottle or something like that. And I think the implication was like, am I going to get laid if I stay? And he's like, I think you should go. And she's like, fair enough. And just like, I was like, okay. Yeah, her character's weird to me. Like, I feel like she kind of like does a nice thing for him later, because she like gives him like this like 48-hour window later on when like he should really just be like decommissioned like right there and then. But she's also like adamant she wants this child of replicants found, because if replicants find out they can have a kid, then all of a sudden they're not just like mechanical things anymore. They're not just fake things. They are a race. They are people with rights and.
Yeah, I mean, she even asked him like, "Is that a problem?" And he goes, "Well, I've never killed anything with a soul before." And it was one of those like things that like ties into the rest of the film also, whether or not he has a soul, or if something is born naturally, does that make it like what's the difference between being created versus being naturally created?
Well, yeah, I think to me that exchange,
if the mind is the same,
that exchange to me, so T says that he's never killed anything with a soul before. If it's again, if it's born naturally, that means it has a soul because it came from a mother. And she says, "What's the difference?" I think the irony of that exchange is that the truth is there is no difference. Like you equally have a soul. If you can think for yourself, then that's you at soul status as far as any measurable metric goes.
But I think people do think about it differently. Like there is something more than just the mind to us, that like the consciousness that is not there. So if we create like AI, in this film it's described as humans lost the taste for slavery, so we had to create something in order to be able to replace that, and they came up with replicants, which are basically humans but without that one thing that makes them human,
which ironically is exactly what Jared Leto wants. He wants to be able to make the replicants breed so that he can keep up with demand if they can keep having, which at that point they're just a race of people And
Yeah.
you know that. But just to get the previous point across, though, that I think is really important is that he's concerned that if whether or not he has a soul, but her response, you know, what's the difference, kind of also answers his question. There is no difference. You do have a soul because you're thinking about it. If you're questioning if you have a soul,
if you are an individual, then what is the difference? Like, it's not a definable thing. So if you have all the makings of a human being, then shouldn't you just be equal?
Yeah.
But even he sees it as different.
Yeah, and I like that exchange, and I like what that does for the themes of the film. My problem more is just with her as a character, because I don't like, she isn't really that likable. So when she's like murdered later on by Love, I'm just kind of like, am I meant to feel something here, or? Well,
I mean, she isn't in that she's also like him. She's just a police officer who's just like, my character's just here to do my job. But she does have these little exchanges, like she asks him for a memory, like, tell me about yourself, tell me about your past. And then she lets him, get away when she didn't have to.
But she's
when
also
Love comes up and attacks her, she holds her ground.
But she's also super gullible, because she just takes his word that he did it.
She trusts him.
Yeah. I just felt really easy to me. She just believes him. I don't know. It rang a little bit false to me.
Well, I don't think replicants are known for lying.
No, they're not meant to be able to lie. That is true, but yeah, I don't know. The scene still felt weird to me. I don't know. Like her entire like relationship with him.
It's okay. You don't like it. It's fine.
It feels weird to me. Anyway, so he finds his little toy horse, right? So the memory he had, he realizes he's in the same location, and he finds this little wooden carved horse. Or is that a unicorn? Maybe it is a unicorn.
I think it's just a horse. It's where the it's where his memory said it would be.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking unicorn maybe would be too on the nose, but unicorns were a thing in the first movie, so it wouldn't shock me if it was a unicorn.
I think it was just a horse.
But there's a date on it, and it's like, okay, so that matches the date of the kid and all that, and he starts looking into, like,
it's the same date that was on the tree that was
yes, that's
over
right.
the box of bones.
So he assumes
it's a birthday or a death date or both.
So he starts looking into, like, kids born that day. The records are a bit wonky, doesn't seem quite right. Where I thought the movie's pacing kind of felt a bit weird to me was this kind of middle section, because it kind of felt like he was ready to go and, like, look, because after a bunch of stuff happens, he goes to, like, a guy who can, like, trace, like, radiation that's on the toy, and he's like, okay, it must have come from this area because it's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then that's what
you
leads
recognize that guy?
He's the captain now.
I'm the captain now.
So and that leads him to Vegas, which is where Deckard is, right? And all I kind of felt like there's no real reason for him not to just, like, immediately do that, but instead there's a whole, like, sort of segue where Joy's, like, got Mackenzie Davis, who we saw briefly in one scene, try and, like, talk to him. She's like a replicant prostitute, and Joy wants her to, like, sync up with her, so she's kind of inside the hologram. So it looks mostly like Joy, but you can sort of see Mackenzie Davis kind of, like, peeking through at times.
Yeah, it's a nice work of special effects where they look like two people just blended together, and there is a slight delay. So if Mackenzie moves first, then Joy has to, like, follow and sync up again.
Yeah, and obviously Joy, when she's hired, there's completely explained that what they're doing, so she knows what she's there for. She knows that she's, like, a surrogate and all the rest of it, and it's
surrogate vagina. Nice.
Don't belittle like that. It's also the boobs and everything else. The whole thing. all the pieces matter. So. And then she just, like, gets told to leave. She does plant, like, a little tracker, which is important for plot reasons. Which is one of the things that I didn't really like, this whole secret group of replicants.
It seemed like it was setting up for another sequel, maybe.
I think that's partly why. I also just kind of felt like they had the one scene where the one woman told her something earlier on, which is when she first went up and spoke to him, and then she had obviously this scene with her, and then it's after the whole Vegas stuff where they show up and kind of save him. and explain like, oh, we're all replicants and we're going to fight for a better future for replicants, and we all know that this baby exists, and
yeah, or one of them at least has witnessed the miracle.
Yes. And of course, the point of the film as well is that Ryan Gosling, in discovering this real child that came from a replicant, is the miracle. So, neat. But I kind of hate the scene where like they all show up and like the main woman's got like the missing eyes. It felt so hokey to me. I'm like, what are we in now? Like some spy movie with like a secret organization? I don't know. It felt a little.
I guess I sort of assumed it's because Mackenzie Davis like knew that his character was important, and that because she had this intimate moment shared with him, then she knows that he's more than just who he is on the surface. And I think it's like her character is important for him because she represents something like him, like even though they're both replicants, like she wants to sleep with him and he denies it because he would rather go to like his fantasy girlfriend at home. He's just more comfortable with that. I think that's also important for his character to have, for us to watch, that he doesn't see something that's more real as an option, because he would rather live in his fantasy.
The only thing I like about this secret group, well, I like the idea of replicants kind of like trying to like become like a proper race and having their own rights. Well, it's a bit of
an extension of Rutger Hauer.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's an evolution of that, because instead of being like a crazy band of four thugs who are just killing people in anger, they've evolved into being a group with ideals and goals and it's more of a peaceful, diplomatic kind of thing. I mean,
or revolution.
Yeah, revolution. Yeah. But the one thing I really like though in this, honestly, is the idea, because the thing I hated when I first saw this, and I still kind of like, as much as I love what it does for his character, I still kind of hate the teasing of, could he be Deckard and Rachel's son? Could that be him? And as much as I really like, because the one thing I really like about it is at the end of all this is when he's disappointed that it's not him, and she leans in and says, you thought it might be you believe that it could be you, and we've all dreamed of being that special, and we're not that special, and
we all want it to be us.
Yeah. That one element rung true to me, and I like that part.
Yeah, they want something more than what they have, which is like the fuel for a revolution, right?
I just think all the scenes that play out with him thinking it might be him, and like him telling the story of the dream that then matches up with something later, it all just feels so painfully pedestrian and predictable. And when I say predictable, I don't mean in a like.
Well, sure, but it's a red herring.
Well,
so...
no, let me. When I say predictable, I don't mean in that I knew where it was going. I mean more in a like, I just see the scenes playing out and setting up things that I know are going to be paid off later. Again, this is going back to it not clicking. This feels more like TV writing to me, where it's just sort of going through the motions of setting up the 2 or 3 key things that we're then going to have later. And the scene where all these like this revolution of replicants show up to him, didn't look a TV scene because it's Deakins and the cinematography is great, but the way it was like staged felt really TV to me. It felt like just a bunch of like extras walked out of the darkness and she's monologuing, and I didn't think she was that good. And I like the ideas that are being presented. I love what this like this harsh realization that it's not him. I like the idea that he believed he was special and he's not. I love that concept. I just wish watching it play out was actually more engaging, because even in this time knowing where it was going, I didn't really enjoy any of the scenes of him thinking it was him. The only part I like...
Even when he went to the woman with the dreams?
Oh yeah, I hate that. No, this is one of the worst things about the whole movie, is the fact that the woman who makes the dreams is the goddamn daughter. I hate this. This is so easy and just so contrived. I hate it. This, like... I just, like... The woman that he goes to see to find out that if his dream is like maybe been given, because because he's not too stupid. He sort of thinks, well, what if the dream that I have, or this memory I have, what if that was given to me from a source, right? What if it's not just made up? What if it's someone else's dream's been like transported or transferred is the word I'm looking for. Thank you. Transferred to him, right? He has that thought,
right?
So he goes to see the dream
because
maker.
He does have the horse, so he knows something is real.
Yeah, there's some part of this memory is real, but he's smart enough to at least consider the idea that it's not his memory. And he goes to see the memory maker, and she's immune compromised, so she's got kind of like a big bubble sort of get up, and we see her making like a birthday party memory, so she's just sort of like doing like hologram stuff with a tablet, and she's like la 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 la, and conceptually that's all fine, but like watching it this time, because I had forgotten like how little of her there was the first time I saw it. So he comes to see her. He shows her the dream because she's got like a little, put your head in that and just sort of think of the memory.
She's the best, and she can tell you if a dream is, or if it's something made up, or if it's a memory that's been transferred, as you said.
And I was already thinking at this point, I'm like, this feels really convenient that this woman happens to have this job, that she happens to be that this is her role in the world. Deckard's kid is this. It feels so small and just really like convenient writing to have it be this character that he's run into in a way that doesn't feel, I don't know. There's nothing about who.
Isn't it kind of nice that like the child of the replicant, maybe two replicant parents, is the one that has the most creativity? I mean, that's nice. Can make the most realistic memories and dreams for replicants.
That's a nice idea, but it still feels really easy and convenient to me. And I mean, don't get me wrong. There is a moment here when she sees this memory and she tears up, and it's clearly her memory. When you know that it's going to be her. The reason why she tears up is, and she says this is definitely a real memory, and you get the feeling like, oh, maybe she feels the emotional weight of the memory when she's looking at it. That's what you maybe think the first time.
I remember the first time watching it was just like, oh, it's probably really affecting her because she's basically, she lives in a glass bubble. She can't do anything. So, and her whole life is just creating these things. So when she gets something that's real, it really affects her a lot more. I mean,
don't get me wrong. The idea that the first ever child, the natural child of two or at least one replicant, is immune compromised. Okay, that makes some sense. Maybe she's not perfect. Like genetically speaking, there's some quirks. That makes sense. But I found myself like, are we not going to see her again till the end of the movie? Like, is this literally like the only setup for her character in the entire thing? Is this one scene? And he just happens to run into her, and his investigation just feels super convenient and easy to me. It really annoyed me this time.
I didn't find it annoying. I actually really love the scene, especially when when Ryan Gosling realizes that it is a real memory and not something created for him, and he's been so stoic the whole film, but he actually like breaks down and screams like he it's basically solidifies to him at this moment, and for the audience too, that it's him. Like he's the one that's the child.
I mean,
even though that turns out to be wrong.
Doesn't LA in this future have like a ridiculous, like huge population? Like, so even in like a present day setting, it's ridiculous that someone in that, say, just a normal city, you'd run into in the plot, and it's like connected to a character. Like it felt so soap opera to like, oh, that one character he ran into halfway through the film is the daughter. I don't know. It just like.
Right. Well, it would have to be though, because she's the one who made the memory. So like it has to be somebody who makes memories that would transfer this one. Ooh, excuse me.
That was loud. Yes.
Sorry about that. I had a spring on my microphone arm. But like she would have to be, unless the memory came from him, which it didn't, but he thinks it is, or the memory would have to come from somebody who's creating them.
No, you're right. They're in this corner where it does kind of make sense it's her, because like whoever makes the memories gave him this memory, right?
Yeah.
I agree.
And she never admits to it, so. But
yeah, no, I understand that line of logic, But my problem then is, well, yeah, but I still find that just like really, just of all the things this kid went on to do in her life, she ended up doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes kind of the problem with that is that the character who finds Rachel's bones is the same character who happens to have gotten her memory, right? So whatever way you want to look at it, there is a double like connection here to him, which I don't like. It feels contrived to me because there's two paths to him through the same overall plot line. And
okay.
and in the context of the plot, there shouldn't be, because he actually has nothing to do with any of these characters, right? That's what we find out. He's not their kid.
Well, he could be the decoy. Like, I don't know if this memory has been implanted in other replicants, and they just see it when they sleep at night also, or if it's specifically Kay, so that he's like the male decoy for this girl, so that she can keep living. So that because he's been implanted with the memories, then that would mean if anybody wanted to like go down that road, they would lead them to him instead of her.
Potentially, although he's not like. Keep in mind that she's about 30, right? Because it's been 30 years since the bones were buried. She died. Rachel died during childbirth, so we know that they match time wise. Keep in mind that he's only however many years old. He didn't exist. So unless she's like continuously, unless she's continuously making more intentional decoys. But I don't get the impression that she's actually trying to cover her tracks. Like I don't even know if she knows who her parents are. It doesn't seem like she does in the film.
No, but the people who set things up for her did make a decoy. So yeah, I don't know.
But I'm pretty sure that was just like because Decker said he taught them how to mess with the records to make her disappear. What it sounded like is they basically cloned like a baby's death or something like that, and said, okay, this is also her, and that's why the DNA match between the two. That's what I got from that scene anyway.
Okay. Yeah, that checks out more than what I was thinking. I mean, unless he there's either multiple decoys at this point where she is trying to get them to chase him instead.
But I don't think she knows, because I don't think she knows who her parents are, and because Deckard even like says he handed her off. If I didn't even meet her, I don't think he was even there for her birth. He said he went away because we were being hunted. That was one of those lines when he goes to see Deckard, where obviously it works as just him and Rachel, but it really kind of sounds like he's saying we as in replicants. We were being hunted, right? It kind of, and it's the same again with Jared Leto, where Jared Leto says to him, maybe you two were designed to fall in love with each other. But he adds on, just for the ambiguity, he's like, if you were designed. Like, oh yeah, very good. Very good, Jared. Nice save. So I just, there's, it really, like, this part of it was worse for me this time, because as soon as he went to go see her, I went, oh, this is a bit of a coincidence.
Yeah, I guess. I just don't. It doesn't bother me because I think the movie's so great, and I think it, like, the job that she has with her background, like, makes you think about it a bit more. Like,
I think
someone who doesn't get to experience the real world, or someone who comes from possibly two replicants, that is the best at what she does, which is making something feel real for replicants.
That's a nice idea, but the journey to her, I like her like plot purpose for the ending, which is the idea that like Kay believes that Deckard should be reunited with his daughter, and that Deckard himself has been refusing himself this connection for like most of his life. I mean, all of her life, because he ran away before, and he did this as a sort of sacrificial thing because he saw this was the only way to protect her, was just to never be a part of her life. He couldn't find her if he wanted to. And the idea that he's been denying himself that part of his humanity, and the idea that Kay says, no, you're going to reunite, you're going to have this, and she deserves you deserve her, you should be in each other's lives. I love all of that. Important. Yeah. I love all of that concept, I really do. But the actual character, it's the same, because one of the things that I said about this movie when I first saw it is that Jared Leto's character, not only do I think all of his scenes should be cut, I actually think he would work better as an off-screen character. I think him being an unseen kind of like force is just behind like this company would actually just work even better. Because my least favorite scene in the whole movie, by far, is when he's with Harrison Ford. They've kidnapped Harrison Ford from his Vegas hotel, and they've brought him back to his lair, and he whips out a new replicant, a copy of Rachel, and obviously they've got CGs on her face to make her look all the same age and all the rest of it. This is, whenever it hinges on Deckard's feelings for Rachel, I'm like, I don't give a shit. I didn't buy it in the first movie. I don't buy it. It doesn't work now because she's technically dead.
Well, I mean, I buy it more in the second film than I do the first film because you're not seeing anything from the first film other than their initial like attraction to each other.
But they had no chemistry though.
Yeah, but I mean, she's not really there, so like it's all based on Harrison Ford's reactions to her memory.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about the duplicate. I'm gonna say even before the duplicate shows up.
Yeah,
having any emotional weight hinge on how he feels about her is like an empty thing to me. I don't feel anything from it because I just like as soon as he starts talking about her.
I did because I found it like the way he spoke about her in the past was like he loved her and that this was a really hard decision for him to leave, but he had to do it for the reasons of love. I mean, we watched the first movie and we go, well, I don't really buy that love story. But in this one, like this is the whole thing that happened after that film. So maybe they did like have more chemistry. The way he talks about her in the past is that he has real emotion for her.
They didn't have much. If she died 30 years ago, she died the same year the first film set. At most, they had months together.
I mean, maybe, but it's still at least the emotions that I'm getting from him in the film feel very genuine.
I mean, if she died 30 years ago and like he fled before she gave birth, then like she must have got pregnant. Like she must have been knocked up in the first movie. Like when they had sex in that first movie, that must have been the point of conception.
Mm. Well, I guess I didn't really think about the dates too much, even though it's in the title of the film. But it seemed to me like the way he spoke about her in the past was that he like the emotions there were real for me, but obviously in the first film that is lacking. Yeah, but they don't have to interact in this film, so it works.
No, it doesn't for me at all. I can't get over it. I can't just pretend that it was there because it wasn't. Like this is like it's not retconning story, but you're retconning it working. It doesn't work for me. Yeah, you're trying to retcon chemistry, and it's not there. So. That falls flat for me completely.
Okay, well, I mean, like people talk about their dead wives or whatever in film, and it can be very emotional. Like for me, watching it this way, like that's how I thought of it when I was watching it.
And if I'd never met his dead wife, this might have worked. But I don't know. I didn't feel it, and some of that is the baggage of the first movie. But probably almost all of it is, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think Harrison Ford is bad in this at all.
No, he's not. He's not bad in any way. I did. Did you feel like their fight scene before they finally talked? When like Gosling first comes in and Harrison Ford's all like, "Yeah, what are you doing here?" And they end up like sort of stalking each other a little bit and having a bit of cat and mouse game. Did that feel a little bit just kind of like, oh well, people expect this. They want like the replicant chasing the replicant like sort of scene.
Well, a possible replicant.
Yeah. Possible alleged replicant, just to be legally on the up and up here.
I enjoyed that scene a lot. That's one of the scenes that I remember leaving the theater going, that was great, because it's a scene of like New Vegas, post-apocalyptic Vegas, which is already like, we actually brought this up in the countdown that we just did last week, but like I love the big like pervy statues of women everywhere. Like
sure,
Vegas has just gotten so out of control, but this is what it is now. Well, in the future,
clearly got out of control, and now no one comes here. Like this is so it's deserted now.
Yeah, it's also there's too much radiation for people to be there. I'm not quite sure how Harrison Ford survives, but I'm sure it's in the movie. I just missed it.
Replicant. Higher tolerance.
Maybe.
um,
Maybe he just found a little pocket where he's safe.
Which is because obviously one of the things they bring up a few times in this movie, the blackout, which I think it was like an animated like short film that like explained it more when the movie came out. But they referenced this time when all tech kind of shut down for a period of time, and it was a long time ago. It was like 20 something years ago, by the sounds of it, because the guy at the Wallace place who's talking about it, he said he was a kid when it happened. So that gives you a bit of context for when it went on. So I don't know if that's related to like what happened to Vegas, maybe. But it did occur to me though that all these fancy holograms they've got of Elvis and Marilyn Monroe, like this tech was at that point before this had to be deserted. So I thought that was interesting. That
I really enjoyed it. Like the it would have been really easy to just have like Elvis singing a song and like Frank Sinatra singing a song and like having this really like high octane fight because of this cool music that's happening behind it. But instead it just comes in and out like it's always broken, but like trying to come through. And it makes the fight like have this more horrific, like it's more suspenseful that way, because it just at any point like Elvis can go on stage or something or just flash, and sometimes there's sound and sometimes there's not. It gives like almost a strobe like effect to their shootout. I mean, it makes sense why Deckard would like try to shoot Ryan Gosling. He's a Blade Runner, and Harrison Ford's on the run.
It makes sense. I just it felt a bit. It was a bit long for what it was. I don't know. This was kind of more of a repeat viewing thing where I got to this scene and I kind of feel like, all right, okay, we want to have them fight for a little bit before they talk. It's kind of like when you watched a Marvel movie and we have to have them fight each other before they finally team up. Just like
it was unique enough though, and it was a cool look at this future world for like a familiar place for me anyway.
Because part of me was thinking, just whip out the horse. Just whip out the horse. He's going to recognize it. just whip out the horse. Because even once he's up in the bar area, he sees like all the other little sculptures. So it's clearly, and it's kind of neat that Deckard took up sculpture. It's almost like he was inspired by. He tried to do the fancy paper things, but he couldn't. And he thought
paper mache unicorn.
So he thought, oh no, you know what? I'll just carve wood. I'll carve wood. That'll be my thing. So sure enough, he carved some wood.
He's probably bored. I mean, if the future is anything like it the way it's going now, that there would be less and less like books around and more technology based entertainment around. So if there's a blackout and he's stuck in Vegas, like maybe he would just go to wood cutting or wood sculpting instead, something with his hands, because there'd be less to do.
The power's back on though. The holograms are working. Maybe there's like a theater in the building he can go and
I'm sure that Marilyn Monroe was on standby.
I'm sure he made sure his lonely nights were taken care of, even if it was just that hologram Marilyn Monroe.
That would probably cover that.
Yeah. I mean, that's not to say. I mean, most of this section is beautiful. Like the journey into Vegas.
You
is
get
really
Deacon's,
nice.
like every shot is like a photograph that you would want to have on your wall somewhere.
It's just kind of interesting to me where I think Villeneuve's like main strengths aren't action. So whenever like it becomes a fight scene, or when the explosions start and they're like running from and they're trying to like fight at this section, it's when I think it's at the weakest. Where I'm just kind of like, oh, this just kind of feels serviceable compared to the cinematography of all of the beautiful vistas and the slow moving, the brooding kind of stuff that most of the movie is.
I guess I kind of disagree, because I think there are some really standout action scenes in Sicario, which I know is a movie you don't like, but I mean the one scene at the Mexican border was really good, really intense.
I don't remember it, so I'll just nod and be like, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but that leads to Deckard being taken for his interrogation with Jared Leto, and he is then Kay, that is saved by the replicants that we brought up earlier, And then he like has this moment where he's for some reason, like, now that he's not a problem in the future, apparently they're okay with big holograms of Joy, just full. I mean, we don't see full frontal, but it's, you know, implied that it is full frontal from like his perspective.
I mean, we see the butt.
We see butt, we see boobs, yes.
But like we see the full body of her backside, so we know that she is totally nude.
So full backle?
Full butt crack.
Full butt crack.
Full reverse cleavage. I don't know all the terminology.
I don't think that's one of them. Maybe it should be, though.
I'll take your word for it.
Maybe it should be. So, and he has this moment, you know, he's staring up at this big purple hologram of Joy, and he's kind of having this and this is like after he's had the scene with the, you know, realizing that he's not the special one, you know, and, you know, the women even talked about, you know, having something to feel that is worth dying for, you know, dying for a purpose. Actually, someone else said that earlier in the movie. Who said that? Someone said that. I can't remember who said that now, but he thinks about it because he has like an audio flashback where you hear it again later on. But sure enough, when they're flying Deckard out over the water, he shows up in his car and takes it down. This fight scene's okay. I thought there was some interesting stuff in this because the water's filling up the car when it like goes down, and Deckard's like trying to struggle to breathe.
Yeah, he's still tied up, so he can't he can't like keep his head above the waterline. Like there's a lot happening going on in the fight.
Yeah, I thought this was a much better, like a more intense fight scene. I like this one a lot, especially with the interesting idea that they're at the shallow end of like the on the other side of the dam, so there's like waves coming in and they're, you know, I dug that element of it. I thought that was a nice like visual. And he kills Love, and we haven't really talked about Love too much. You said you liked her, so would you like to try and like defend her when I said she was kind of bland?
I mean, I think her name is interesting. I don't really know what the message is there for her other than maybe that love is dangerous or love can be cruel sometimes.
The only like interesting, I mean, she cries when like what's his face?
When Leto kills the replicant that has just been born.
Yeah, the newborn, where he's like, you're just not good enough. Because he touches her stomach, he's like, you can't get pregnant, slice. Like, and he gets mad and you know, effectively kills her. The one line she has that's telling to me is when she thinks she's won the fight at the end here, she says, I'm maybe misremembering. Like, I'm
the best or something.
Yeah, I'm the best one. Like, I'm the best replicant. That's the sentiment. I don't know the exact wording, but that was the sentiment. I'm the special one. And I think it's interesting that she has this warped sense of wanting to be special, whereas Ryan Gosling's character has accepted that he's not special. And that's part of being human. We all kind of have to accept that we're not special. And those of us who don't are either assholes or end up being like Hitler, right? Because you have this super ego. And you try and
that's true.
So so that one little line, okay, there's a bit of a counterpoint there.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Now that you bring that up, that is the real parallel, is that she is I think she accepts what replicants are, and she still strives to be the best at that, so that she's more accepted in the world.
She's effectively saying she wants to be the best and like well treated slave. That's effectively
right, and she thinks that's worth like fighting and dying for.
Yeah. But of course she's kind of close-minded to the actual real freedom that could be had, or the real life that could be had if like things change.
Yeah, and she is called Love, but she is exceptionally cruel. Like when she goes after people, she'll stab them in the back. She goes and people don't have quick deaths when it's Love that's doing it. When she goes after Robin Wright's character, she like crushes her hand while she's holding a glass, so all the shards of glass are going through her and she's making this last a long time.
Yeah, she kind of came off to me as like a villain from like a Matrix sequel in this when I watched it this time. I was getting like crap.
That's pretty cruel.
I was getting kind of. I was like, so she's got like a cool look, and she's got that rigid like fringe she's got, and she's meant to be like that. She has a scene like early on or like halfway through where she's like like commanding the drones when they're firing upon the rebels as Kay's like trying to get into the orphanage, and she's like getting her nails done as she's like doing this
while she's murdering.
While she's murdering people, and I thought this is a bit over the top. Like I was like, okay, I get it, she's villainous.
Well, not just that, but like everything is so in control. Like even her hairstyle that you brought up, you think is ridiculous, but I think it shows a lot of her character. That like in order to have bangs like that, you have to keep those things very, like that's a high maintenance hairstyle, and it's very tight, very controlled. And I think that shows a lot of her personality coming through, and the fact that she is her murdering is nothing to her. Like it's just something that she does. This is what she's great at. It's to the point where she can do it while she's getting like something too superficial done.
I agree that's the purpose. All I'm saying is that it's a bit cheesy in its execution because it is so like in your face. It feels like just paint a mustache on her. Like just do it. She's that evil and maniacal, and like she's going to have her nails done as she's like ordering drone strikes, through her magic like tech eyeballs. Like I don't know, she comes off as so like one of the things that I think that I do like about the original film more than this one is there really is kind of like a grittiness to the original, which this has in parts. But some of this is just a bit too empty and clean at times. And I think that it's moments like this where the villains in the original Blade Runner, as much as I think the hunt for them is not that interesting, because that's the part of the movie that kind of ultimately fails, other than the love story, is that they feel like messy characters. They feel kind of real in the sense that they are kind of erratic, and they're not really quite all there, and they're trying to understand what they are and who they are. I think I feel that more from those characters than whereas here, like, she's just more of a straight villain, and I just kind of get, like, movie trope vibes from, like, how they're presenting her and her villainy. And I agree that it's intentionally doing all this to say what you were saying. Like, it's showing you that she is this rigid with her appearance and every element of her personality. But she's the unlikable villain version of Bryce Dallas Howard's character from Jurassic World. That's what she is. She's the evil super villain version of her.
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe it is a bit tropey, but I think it plays well with the themes of the film still. Like you were saying, like she is sort of this mirror of what Kay is striving after, which is being special. Like she has it figured out. Like she doesn't want the status quo to change because she is the best at this. She is the best one. And if that changes, then she's no longer special.
Again, I have no problem with any of the themes or any of the ideas. I think they're all ideas that I love to explore. I just don't know. I just don't like how they're portrayed at points in this.
Okay.
It's like that's what I said. I said it just doesn't click at times, and I'm trying to explain why moments and characters in this just fall flat for me, where I just don't feel anything from them, and she is one of those characters where I just don't feel it.
All right.
So
I thought she was awesome. I don't know. When I left the film, I thought of her character and Ana de Armas. I thought they were both the standouts.
I think Ana de Armas is good in the film. I just think that the relationship itself is not that great for reasons that I previously mentioned. This villain, though, I actively disliked her this time. Like this is one of the elements that got worse for me was her character. That said, though, if you got rid of Jared Leto and she was just the main villain on her own with like an unseen like boss person, it would maybe be slightly more interesting. I don't know. But then we get to the ending, which is they go to where Decker's daughter is, and he's like, "No, I'm just going to stay here. You go in and meet your daughter." And we get the theme, the little melody that plays in the first film, and when Rutger Hauer's dying. And it's my favorite part of the movie because it's the part where I'm like, okay, I totally get the point of this and what you're saying about the comparing these two characters and how this is a much happier ending because while he's still dying, he's dying through his own choice. He'd made a choice. He died for something he believed in, as opposed to dying because his makers decided that he wasn't allowed to live anymore, and that there's more freedom in that, and that in turn makes him special. You know, he became special because of his choices and his actions, not because he just happened to be special. And that is a really nice sentiment, and I love that we don't have to go sit through a crappy conversation with Harrison Ford and this other character. I love that it just cuts to black as soon as, like, you know, we don't even get to, like, she doesn't even get to realize who he is. He just knows who she is, and he reacts to it, and it cuts to black, and that's it. Directed by Denis, right? Like, I think the ending, the last 3 minutes, is perfect.
Yeah.
Much like Rutger Hauer's speech in the original Blade Runner is perfect. I just don't like how the stories in either of these films are told. I think this one is better than the first one, but not as much as I did the first time I saw it. I actually think I like this film less now that I've seen it again. Which is a shame, because I was hoping I'd like it more, and unfortunately the problems of just kind of, like, they were worse this time, because this time, like, it's like, okay, it's almost 3 hours long, and when I'm sitting through some of these scenes that I think are just kind of like, okay, I get the point of the scene, god damn it, move on to the, like, like get on with it.
I love the pacing in the film. I think it's such a beautiful movie, and the world that's been created here, like, obviously for me it's the best part of the first film, and we get to see more of it, and it takes its time. It lets you, like, really get into it and take in everything that you're seeing and hearing, and
that's what's funny,
it's
though.
such a nice, slow-paced, beautiful film.
That's what's funny, though. I love the slow-paced shots. I love the slowly walking through the vistas and flying through the city.
You just don't like it.
No, but I'm saying that's not the part that I think feels slow to me. The part that feels slow to me is, like, the conversations. It's the getting to the point of what, you know, like, I've already gotten the point of the scene, or I understand what it's saying already, and I feel like the characters are, like, taking so long to make the point, and I'm like, this is why this movie's almost 3 hours long. And I get that this is an unpopular opinion, and you know, I'm glad you like it, because unlike the first film, at least someone on the show is, like, arguing for it. At least there's some this and that in the argument, as opposed to and I want to love it so much. I love the cyberpunk aesthetic so much. I just don't like how the story's told that much, and it doesn't click with me. And my rating is going to go down for my first viewing. I like this less than I did the first time I saw it.
Okay. Yeah, I like the ending a lot too. I think it ends really strong. I love that Ryan Gosling, like, parts ways. He doesn't need to see the full thing through, because his part is done, and that's all he really needed to feel like he did something, was to get Deckard to his daughter. And the rest from there doesn't matter, and he can die, like, at peace. And if we can even call it dying, which I think we can. We see him as a human.
Yeah, we do.
And you're right. Like, we don't get the conversation. We don't need to hear what they talk about. We know that, you know, he's in the room with her, and he's accepted that this is the next step for him.
She's not really a character in this. She is, you know, a goal. The important part of this scene is that Deckard cares about meeting his daughter. The fact that he, like, is reacting to it, the fact that he walked in the door and he is feeling something from it, is the important part. Like, how she feels about it is almost like, I mean, I'm sure it'll be emotional. I'm sure she'll care, but that's not the important part to us, because she's just the daughter that he needs to get to, as opposed to being a character in her own right. And that's, you know, and that's fine in the context of what it's doing. But it's just so frustrating.
Well, we made it to the end, so I guess we could just rate it. At this point,
I want to say that Blade Runner is a series now, because it's 2 films that I want to love so much, and, like, I feel like I'm probably going to give them another chance at some point. I feel like I'm going to watch both of them again in 5-10 years.
Will.
And I'm going to probably just be disappointed again and be like, why aren't these better? I want to love them so much, and I just don't. Like, it's playing with ideas, like there's so many. I mean, Battlestar Galactica we brought up, that deals with, like, you know, artificial people that are, you know, evolved from robots, right? Terminator evolved from robots. I love playing with those ideas. There's other great examples too. I love stuff set in the future. I love synth scores. I love so much about what these movies are, but somehow the elements just don't click together for me. Even in this one, which other people, you and Connor specifically, who don't like the first film, like I don't like the first film, both seem to love this one. and I still don't
Yeah.
like this that much. When I first saw it, I said that I kind of like it, but I have some big problems with it. Now I'd say I'm kind of just lukewarm at best on it. So, anyway, yeah, we should rate. I want to get over my frustration, damn it, because I want to love it so much. I really do.
Okay. Well, I mean, maybe you will revisit it and, it'll go up again. And then who knows? It's funny that this is also taking the same journey as the other one. And I know it's a director that you really like. So, much like Ridley Scott.
Well, actually, funny enough, much like Ridley Scott, it's a director that I'm very up and down with. Like, I love some of his films, and I just don't like some of his other films.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I know Sicario isn't for you, and I think maybe you're lukewarm on Prisoners.
No, I like Prisoners. I like Prisoners. I really like Arrival. Not to spoil our thoughts on that, because we're doing that soon. But hey, maybe I'll hate it this time. I'll listen to it once. Maybe this time I'm going to be like, no, this movie's shit now.
My father hates that movie, and he's a big sci-fi fan. Like, he's probably the reason I love sci-fi so much. And so, what? You hate Arrival? Like, how do you hate that movie as a sci-fi fan? And he hated it because he said, because they make the scientists look dumb, so they have to get a linguist to do it, and he doesn't like that scientists look dumb. Like, wait, she's a linguist, she's also a scientist.
That's also that's also scientific, and also go watch Alien Covenant, or even Prometheus, but Alien Covenant's even worse. You want to see dumb scientists? Go watch those, okay?
Yeah, I know. Like, I think there's something else underlying that is like, maybe politically rubbing him the wrong way or something. I'm not sure. He's very sensitive to that kind of stuff.
I was going to call him a name. I'm going to hold back because it is your father. I'll be nice, but I did not like the comment. They make the scientists look dumb because they have to get a linguist to do.
Yeah, I thought that was a strange one too.
All right, what are you rating Blade Runner 2049?
Well, I do love it. The weaknesses I have in the film are not really enough for me to I don't know. Like, I still don't even really see that many weaknesses. Like, yeah, Jared Leto has a stank to him, a bit of a stigma when I see him on screen, but I actually don't hate the character and I don't hate the scenes. I think a lot of the things that you don't like about the film, I like for some reason. It just clicks with me, and it was such an awesome experience in the theater to have this epic sci-fi told in such an environment that is awesome to look at and analyze. And I love all the themes in the film. I love the characters. I'm going to give it a 9.
Not bad. There was a tech hiccup in the middle of Tara's rating spiel, and I'm hoping that'll edit together nicely. I think she did well to recapture that last sentence.
Thank you.
I'm just letting them know because I'm impressed. I thought you did a good job.
Thanks. What are you going to rate it?
It's a 6 out of 10 for me.
Oh, okay. I actually thought you were going to go lower.
No, I'm not, because the technical qualities are very high, and like there are ideas I like about it. I wonder if it's a combination of a couple of things. I think, on the one hand, I don't think I connect to the characters as much as I want to in a story like this. And I love stories of like the robot or cyborg or whatever it may be, like sort of connecting with their humanity. But I wonder if it's a combination of not connecting to the characters because maybe they're just a little bit dull in some ways.
Do you think because our robots are too human that you don't really buy the story as much?
No, because there's other stories where the robots are just humans.
Yeah.
But it's a combination of that, and maybe also a combination of it not really necessarily doing anything that like new with any of the concepts. Like, I don't think there's anything in this that's not been explored to some extent in other, AI or robot or whatever movies, right? You can sort of take pieces. We compared some of it to her. You can compare some of it to Battlestar Galactica, even, which we brought that up as well. You can compare, bits and pieces to a bunch of different things. I wonder, like what if one of those, if I really connected to the characters, or if it did something that kind of blew my mind with the concept, either one of those things might have like gotten it over the line for me. But because both of them are kind of just in a, like, yeah, they're both solidly fine. they're fine. It leaves me just kind of underwhelmed. Like, I was so excited when this was coming out. I went in, like, thinking this is going to be my Moon of 2017, or this is going to be my District 9, and they both came out in 2009, which is weird because I can't really say they're I can't use two examples from the same year, but or it's going to be like whatever, right? Pick your big sci-fi movie of a year that wowed me and I loved and like praised for that year.
Avatar.
But I legitimately went in thinking this is going to be a beautiful film that I might love like I do Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and I came out just feeling disappointed that it didn't get anywhere close to that. And then this time, because I was going in with no expectations, because I just I knew how I felt the first time, I'm really sad that I like it even less, because it means that the problems weren't just my expectations or just not getting what I was expecting from it. Now I just have problems with it. So it's unfortunate, but and I'm sure everyone loves this movie, and I'm sure everyone hates that I've effectively shat on most of it for.
Well, if it's anything from the first page of the IMDb reviews, then they'll be on your side. With the exception of the not liking the first film.
If people if the loyal viewers and listeners enjoy the show and want the show to continue its success, maybe make sure you give it the old thumbs up, because I suspect there's going to be a lot of thumbs down on this one. Because I was maybe I don't click with enough people's opinions of this movie, and that's fine. There's always going to be.
That's what I'm here for.
There's always going to be some movies though where you just disagree with the populace, whether it's because you love a movie that everyone else seems to think is bad, or because you don't like the movie that everyone else seems to love. There's always those. Well,
sometimes
examples.
Movies just aren't made for you, or like it's too. Like, I'm not a New Yorker. I don't really like Woody Allen movies, and he gets nothing but praise. I know you don't really like him either,
I don't like
but
him
like,
either.
I don't know if it's just like a New York thing. But,
I don't think it's a New York thing.
well, I know your New York experience is Jason X, or not Jason X, Jason 8, Friday the 13th.
It's literally called Jason Takes Manhattan. I mean, it's not that hard to piece the puzzle together there. Jason X is the one in space. Very, very different. Yeah. But I think the problem with that is that this movie is made for me. This movie is right up my alley in theory.
Yeah.
Like this is on paper. There's nothing more me than this. Like I went into this thinking it might be one of my favorite sci-fi movies ever if they pull off what it feels like they're trying for, and for me, I just don't think they did. So
and you got Deacons, like, even so, every trailer that came out was just so exciting because look how beautiful this sci-fi movie is. Yeah, it's being taken so seriously and done with such a director with such a visual eye for storytelling.
Trailers did look really nice. And the first poster with just like him standing next to the car in the fog looked good. The rest of the posters looked kind of generic, though. I thought the posters weren't that great, given. I
don't really remember.
It's just that classic blue and orange color, like clash with lots of like people on the poster.
Yeah.
It's just generic stuff. Nothing. I mean, most of the main posters. I'm sure there's some like limited ones, or like maybe Japan got a cool poster or something that someone is going to tell me about. But most of the main posters were just this really generic orange and blue color scheme with heads.
Well, I'm a little disappointed that it didn't do well. I was actually concerned because I don't think it did very well in the box office, to the point where obviously there weren't going to be a sequel for it, but also that like it just seemed like such a cool thing that a studio said, we're going to make a sequel to this film. Here's all the money you need to make something beautiful and big. And, if it failed, then maybe Denis Villeneuve wouldn't be able to get that chance again. But, I mean, he's making Dune. So.
Yeah. On that, though, if Dune, like it doesn't do, like...
Well, it can't do well. It's coming out on HBO also.
Yeah, but some other things have done pretty well recently with that caveat. So, but like, if it maybe this is the perfect time because they can't like just assume it's his fault. But like, I was thinking when they announced him doing Dune, I was like, if this is another big budget failure, like he might just be back to doing the smaller indie style movie, which would be fine. Like he's good at them. Like you know, like that's not a
Yeah.
bad thing necessarily, but like his days of been given like hundreds of millions of dollars to do these big sci-fi movies might just be done because
Yeah. I mean, as somebody who enjoys like that, it's either we're going to get, you know, Blade Runner 2049, which is so beautiful, and I know you're lukewarm on it, but like it's so exciting to get a trailer for a sci-fi movie that looks like that, rather than like the Tomorrow War, which would be which is the other version of like the big box office.
For the record, this is better than Tomorrow War, just in case anyone accuses me of saying otherwise.
Totally.
Let's not you know, say silly things here. I have no doubt there's a bunch of sci-fi movies that I do like more than this that people would scoff at, but that's okay. But yeah, I'm not gonna give example. I mean, I give this a 6. There's tons of movies I like more than this. That's what would make my top 50 sci-fi movies. So there's clearly everything I put on that list is better than this to me, but that's okay.
I think this one made my list. Yeah.
Not everything.
I'm sure it did.
Not everything will click with everyone, and I hope people remember that before I get nasty comments saying I just don't get it.
Well, at least they'll be nice to me, which is the only thing I care about.
And if he's just too smart for you, you just don't get it.
The girl gets it. She's smart and beautiful.
You don't get it.
I always throw in that last part when I read comments about me. Like, even if it's not there, I still read it.
Yeah. What was, and you know, I expect more reasonable responses for the most part because let's face it, this is not going to be the same fan base for largely that the Snyder DC movies are, which is where I also get that you just don't understand that Snyder's too highbrow for. Oh, is he? Okay, sure, yes. It's that slow motion shot where the shotgun fires
Which one?
off. Yep. There's a lot of slow motion in his movies. Yeah.
What are we doing next time?
Next time, if you're interested, we're doing a recent-ish film, actually. We're doing Synchronic, which is a film from the directors of The Endless, which we did a long time ago. Way back, probably in the first 50 episodes, I'll say. I'm not sure. And Anthony Mackie's in it, so they're kind of like moving up in the world in terms of who they get in their movies, so I'm curious.
They did do an episode of Twilight Zone, the new ones, that we didn't like very much.
Yeah, but I mean, there was other directors that did episodes of that we also didn't. There would be no way like that, didn't do good episodes of that. I'm not going to hold that, I'm going to hold them accountable for that. But we're doing Synchronic, so look forward to that. So yeah, I'll just reiterate, like and subscribe. All those things help us out a lot, and they're completely free to do. They're super important on YouTube, so please hit the buttons. Ding the bell as well, next to the subscribe for notifications, so you make sure you get the notifications on the channel. For both the Ace and also Sacred Hockey Mask, and when it returns, streams after midnight. And anything else that I've got cooking up that might show up soon. I'll also take this time to thank our Patreon producers. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Boardnow, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Stanley. Tara, why don't you tell them more about Patreon?
Yeah, if you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MildFuzzTV. And if you donate, so it's $1 per month, you will get bonus episodes of The Ace. And that's where we put all of our B-movie schlocky stuff and some other things we accidentally put there, like Time Cop. Even maybe 95 Judge Dredd shouldn't have been on there, but we were new. We were new at this, so
Time Cop's
mistakes were made.
Time Cop's in like the first 4 or 5 episodes, and it's still the one that Tara goes to most often to like sell the bonus episodes for Patreon.
Well, I mean, who wouldn't want to hear our thoughts on Time Cop?
Didn't we go like 2 hours on that?
Yeah, it was a good one.
We broke that movie down, and it's probably not a movie that deserves to be broken down, but we broke it down.
Yeah. There's also like, your favorite B films are there too, like anything with David Carradine that's sci-fi. We probably have up there now.
Yeah, we have to get some more Jeffrey Combs in there in the near future.
Ooh, I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah,
I've been on a Jeffrey Combs kick for horror, so we can keep that train going.
There's at least a couple of Garrett Graham films in there as well. So,
he is my favorite.
So go check out that. Yeah, I'd also get us on the Twitters at Screams Midnight, which is now the Mailed Fuzz Movies like general Twitter account, which is for all the movie shows. So it's at Screams Midnight. Because it used to be the Screams After Midnight Twitter, which is why it's got that handle. So go check that out. Tara does have to post for the thumbnail though. I think she thought she got away with it because she moved me
I actually forgot, yeah.
Yeah, you moved me into the other parts. But here we go.
I'll just slouch for all of these now.
3, 2, 1. Pause.
I'm gonna have to like look at pictures of how people pose.
Maybe I'll like
Take
Photoshop
a class.
your hair purple or something like that. Maybe the hologram.
Oh, okay.
Just get
I'm fine with that.
a purple brush and just. Tara's got purple hair now.
How cyberpunk.
Mm.
You put my cyberpunk video game avatar in there instead.
Yes. Hey Firefly. My cat's on my lap, demanding my attention. That is the end of the show.
That means the show's over.
That's the end of the show. Yeah, that is the end of our Blade Runner 2014 discussion. Be gentle in the comments. Thank you. So, yes. Thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer at Salsa.
I don't know if I want to do that anymore.